good, y'all, and welcome to my review for episode 29 of Stone Ocean. Bro, this episode was fucking incredible, man. This might be my favorite episode of this core so far, this batch of episodes. I love this one. This episode was definitely just goes full on with the Final Destination, comparisons, which I mentioned in the last review. And also, I did not know Rocky seems to have the same exact sense of humor as the Final Destination movies, the same dark sense of humor, man. And yeah, the unbelievable levels of depravity that Versus goes to make sure Jolene and Ermis die, man. I'm like, goddamn, bro. You people thought fucking Dio and Kira were depraved and despicable human beings for what they did, and arguably they probably are more despicable than Versus. But bro, you gotta admit that Versus is a little bit comparable too for the shit he pulls with the kids. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let's just jump right into the actual episode. So we start the episode off with Anastasia and weather forecast. They finally made it to the hospital. They're trying to figure out where Jolene and the rest of them are, and the weather forecast says that he can sense 3 people. Father Pucci, Jolie, and a mystery third one. It's kind of weird he can't sense Ermis as well since she's there with them, but whatever the case may be, we finally get over back to Jolie and Ermis. Jolie is trying to open up the actual door into the actual main door of the airplane while they're in midair, mind you, and everything. So obviously Ermis doesn't think this is a good idea because of the air pressure sucking them out and everything, but eventually Jolie tells the flight attendant to open up the door for her. Eventually, Jolie manages to open it, and of course, jumps out there, making a beeline towards Versus. And at this point, Irvin's like, yeah, you know what? Screw it. Use the air pressure to slam into those motherfuckers. And then right as Jolene's about to use Stone Ocean to punch Versus, next thing she does manage to make contact, but the dude just doesn't do anything. Until we find out glass, and now we see broken glass, and we find out that somehow, someway, Jolene and Versus somehow got transported into a fighter jet that's also about to crash. The pilot of it is like, oh, we're gonna be crashing in like 2 minutes or whatever. So yeah, you check see how bad the damage is, and we'll see like half his arm is missing, which is the one holding the actual joystick itself. So Jolene's obviously trying to find a way to get out of this, and she uses and gets out the top of the cockpit of the plane, and then fires off her thread to try and get Ermis to pull her out there. But of course, it eventually snaps on her. But that does not stop Jolene as she cries out Stone Ocean, and then we get back to, I guess, reality, if you want to call it that, or whatever, the outside of the hole. We see that there actually are 2 cops standing out there, investigating the hole. Jolene grabs one of their walkie-talkies, and then we have Father Pucci. Like, bro, I at first this mentions this later on in the episode, and I have to agree with them. Like, whose side is Father Pucci on? Because basically throughout this entire episode, he's constantly throwing shade at Versus and saying like, yes, see, Jolene planned for this. Her skills were sharpened in prison. She knew that this was happening. That's why she waited till the cops got here so she could use the walkie-talkie to talk to the outside world. And he does it throughout the entire episode, and I'm like, bro, I'm with the verse. Whose side are you on when you constantly keep praising Jolene like this, bro, and saying how great, and saying how she's planned for this, and how her skills have been sharpened, this, that, and the third. It's kind of weird, man. But anyway, Versus ain't having this. He tells like, oh, for the love of God, will you just shut the fuck up already? I swear to God, man, the F-bombs in part 6 have been hilarious, man. They've been awesome. But anyway, so he tells like, do I look like I'm losing? So far, am I? I'm not losing it. So far, I'm winning this battle still. So then we finally actually get Versus's backstory. What happened to him that led him to this point? So, he had a interesting childhood. His dad left him. He didn't like his mom and his stepdad, who preferred his half sisters over him. So he ran away. And then some cleats fell out of the sky and hit him. Now, for some reason, he calls them spiked shoes, which, I guess technically that's what cleats are. They are spiked shoes, but, like, who the hell calls cleats spiked shoes? And mind you, this is supposed to take place in 2012, not like 1980, not like 1950, So I found it kind of, or maybe there is a difference between cleats and spiked shoes, but to me, they seem to be about the same. I could be wrong on that one, and if I am, hey, fair enough, my bad, fam. But yeah, I found that kind of weird. He calls them spiked shoes instead of just calling them cleats like everyone else would. Anyway, the cleats themselves are baseball cleats, and he handed them the side, and they were like 28.5 centimeters, which, if you guys wonder what my shoe size, it's 13 and a half. Yeah, I got some big-ass feet. Not as big as the tribal chief. He wears a straight of 15, bro, so, yeah. The tribal chief got some big-ass feet, but I got some decent-sized feet of my own. Anyway, So he finds the baseball cleats. He likes the sound that they made. So he's like, oh fuck it, I'll keep them. And of course they were like way too big for him because they were like a 28.5 at that point. But eventually, of course, the cops found him and they of course brought him in front of a judge. And it's kind of weird just seeing the contrast and how quickly this woman flips her switch. Because at first, when he first gets inside the courtroom, he's like, oh, don't worry, this is just a little, this is nothing formal. We just want to ask you some questions, like it's an interrogation or something, not a court hearing. But then she asked her, "Did you steal the shoes?" Versus Mint just decides, like an idiot said, or in his words rather, like an idiot decides to tell the truth. It's like they fell from the sky, and then this woman just snaps like that. Like she's like, "How dare you steal from me? I find it!" And shout to her voices are in the dub, bro. I thought her voice acting here was really good, just the sound of her voice. And she's like, "How dare you steal from kids like you?" She sounded kind of like that, and I thought it sounded great, man. So shout outs to her VA, whoever voiced her in the dub. Thought her performance great. So she throws his ass in juvie for 6 months on basically nothing but circumstantial evidence. But then later on, around the end of that time frame, is when the actual criminal did eventually confess on he did the crime. He stole the shoes because they were both very valuable. They were signed by like some famous baseball player, and then because of that, they were say would have been gone to if they were sold to a collector. They would have gone up for about 10 grand, but they ended up deciding into like some hospital for kids with disabilities or whatever. So yeah, he's out of juvie. One thing I will say though is that you guys know I've been kind of like giving different productions a lot of shit for like the gray silhouettes of background characters, and I just thought that's kind of weird. I will say this is probably the only time it kind of works by having the whoever was the thief be like a mystery opponent and he be the gray silhouette. I think this is like the one time in the show where actually I think the gray silhouettes actually worked for once. Anyway, as if this man didn't have a shit enough luck already, once he got to prison, he ended up getting so crippled, he got so crippled mentally and physically, he barely had the strength to walk. And then, while he was in juvie, he eventually fell into like this small hole in the ground, and to try to break his fall, he extended his arms up, which of course, there just happened to be a knife hidden in the grass with a paper bag over it, so that went right through his hand. Now, the weird thing is, because right after this, he says that he was also got beat up by some kid 3 years older than him that was the bitch of some gangster doing his dirty work, and that he says that even though it was treated by a doctor, the wound was still exposing pus, and even fucking worms came out of it, which I thought was really bizarre because that would assume that there was an infection with the wound, but it was in a paper bag. So, and he got stabbed with the knife through the paper bag. So, wouldn't there have been just a case of infection, or was the actual or when the doctor went to clean it up and fix it up, he didn't clean up his like tools he used or something, or didn't properly clean up the wound, so it still ended up getting infected? Because I'm assuming, given it was still excreting pus like 2 weeks after when fucking words were coming out, that he did have an infection of some sort from that. Because they also say he almost died for high fever, which I'm assuming was probably also caused by the cut. But yeah, I thought that was kind of weird because, I mean, I guess the tools weren't sanitized at that point. That's how he got the infection. Or maybe the paper bag didn't really do much of anything. And it would still have been an infection regardless if there was or wasn't a paper bag. Regardless of such, he eventually left prison and just decided to live a simple life away from the press, away from the public eye. So then one time, as he was taking a piss, he sees the wall in front of him start to open up, revealing a woman's skull that died there previously. Obviously, goes to with his scan ability, Neverworld. So that's when we kind of go back to the future, where we find out that he is actually apparently Dio's kid. So I guess he's like Giorno's half brother, I guess. Now I don't know, but because he says like the blood that runs through my veins is Dio. Should I really be invested? Should I really be thankful to this priest because he let me control my powers? Hell no. So I don't know if he's like actually Dio's son and he is like Giorno's half brother, or he's just saying he's Dio's son because he has his blood through him because of Father Pucci. But given the fact he has the blonde hair and everything, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe he is actually Dio's actual son. Maybe that's how all of these other guys are connected, because they're all like children of Dio and it's not just Giorno. So yeah, either way, I guess this dude's related to Giorno. They're half brothers. cool, I guess. I don't know. This part of the episode kind of confused me. If any of you guys are manga readers or can elaborate on this a little bit more, please do so in the comments, because I'm kind of confused if he's like actually Dio's kid and he's like actually Giorno's half brother or anything like that. Regardless of the case may be, he then starts scratching at the wall behind him. He's like, I'm really starting to lose my patience with this so-called holy man. I just like the way he said that, holy man. Just like the way he said. And honestly, while I was scratching the wall, I was always expecting like his fingernail to come off or something rather grotesque. But instead, it's just Father Pucci in the wall, even though Father Pucci is standing right in front of him. This also made no goddamn sense. Like, is David Productions cutting some content that better explains all this? Or was it just like this in the manga, and Araki just doesn't bother to explain how Father Pucci is in two places at once? Regardless of such, he ends up finding Weather Forecast's memory disc inside the wall, inside Father Pucci inside the wall, and he grabs it out. So then we head over back to Jolene. She's asking the pilot, hey, how do I get out of this? Where's the ejector seat? I've seen it in so many movies. And he tells me, yeah, there is an ejector seat, but they've already passed the point of no return where they could get it, where they can use it safely. And then eventually Emporio finally picks up the phone, so she's screaming like, oh my god, we're in a time, we're in the event of the past, I'm inside a fighter jet, Irma's inside of a plane, and the entire time Emporio's like, woman, what the hell are you talking about? He is confused as everyone else is. So then, after all this madness, and Emporio decides to says, I'm gonna go back. Joan tells him not to. The plane, the jet itself, crashes into the fucking plane. Like half of it goes inside there, Jolene included. Somehow there is an explosion, probably because the plane hasn't exploded yet, and nothing up to this point can cause the plane to crash until the plane actually crashes. So a fucking bomb could probably go off in this plane. It still wouldn't crash or blow up, given the fact that it's still before time the plane would crash. So then Emporio pulls the computer out of his ass. I'm like, because he's like searching up like the plane, everything to give Jolene some more info. And I'm like, bro, when did you get a computer? Obviously, then later on explains that this is his ghost computer, which I'm assuming is the same computer he had when he was in the Dolphin prison. So makes sense because I just completely forgot about that. But at first I was like, bro, how the fuck did you get a computer? Anyway, he tells him about the plane crash happening. The time is right, but there was 2 survivors on the plane all the way in the back row. I think it was like 51F, 51D, and 50F, I think were the numbers. And to sit those 2, they were the 2 survivors. So you sit there, you'll survive the plane crash, because apparently when the plane crashed, it created a quantum vacuum around them. That's how they survived. Literally, this sounds exactly like Final Destination, but whatever. So Jolene and Hermes rush over to get into those seats. Of course, Netherworld's right on their tail. Jolene uses like the little this little metal thing that's between all the seats, just pushes it over into Netherworld, putting them there as Jolene and Hermes get to their seats. So of course, Jolene and Hermes just like toss the guys that were there and just throws them away from the seats. Hermes goes off like, you're not even real. You're just a memory of the people that were here. The real survivors are living out their lives. So she feels absolutely no remorse, nothing, from throwing these 2 out there for their own survival. Look, honestly, I feel like Araki made this so easy on purpose, given what happens next. But anyway, once Hermes turns around, there is a little girl with bandages around her eye. Looks like she has like a lot. Looks like there's a lot of burns on her. Given how her skin looks, it looks like she probably is a burn victim. And so she's like, where am I? It's about time. I must not be in my room. It's time to switch my bandages, and I have to take medicine after I nap. Bro, when I saw this, and then a second kid falls down that, of course, has 2 prosthetic legs. Bro, when I saw this, I laughed my fucking ass off. I'm like, damn, I did not know. I know I mentioned this earlier, but I gotta say it again. I did not know that Araki had the same dark sense of humor as the Final Destination movies. If you know, you know. But, like, literally, bro, I was laughing my ass out when I saw there were 2 kids standing there in their seats giving Jolene the ultimatum. Do you let the kids stay in the seats and you die, or do you throw these kids over into the fires of death, injure kids, have that shit on your conscience, and take your seats and survive? And of course, you have verse as mentioned is like, so there's no need to stop them now. Now that there's 2 children. Oh, and by the way, not only are there 2 kids, he then throws in a 3rd one in there for good measure. Like I said, I was laughing my ass off this entire part. It's like, I think we can agree that he is probably Dio's son, because this is Dio's levels of depravity. Remember, back in part 1, he stole what the fuck was the bitch's name? Jonas's girlfriend. Arena, I think is her name was. Arena, you know, which I'm assuming, which for the 20s had to have been like the equivalent of like raping somebody or something like that for like 20 standard, man. So obviously this shit runs in the family. But anyway, so he obviously reiterates what I just said about him, about Jolene. You know, they could survive, but then they'll be having the guilt of having 3 kids' death on their conscience, man. So will they even have the strength to go on? So then the little boy with 2 prosthetic legs. Was, oh, is this your seat? Oh, we can move. I can't really stand that well on my own, but if it's your seats, we'll move. Like the kid has such good manners too, man. Which I'm assuming Iraqi did that just to make it all the more heartbreaking for Jolene and Hermes, man. Seriously, like I said, this is like Final Destination's levels of dark comedy, man. Like, I was like, bro, this is so fucked up. It's funny, but as Jolene and Hermes are trying to figure out what the hell to do next, the plane eventually then explodes. So then we're back with Versus and Father Pucci. Father Pucci continues on telling him, well, now, can you finish the job? And he tells him to shut the fuck up. In his mind, doesn't actually sound like it, but he like does it in his narration, bro. Like the F-bombs in part 6 have been absolutely hilarious, man. So Father Pucci then asks him if he doesn't feel any sense of remorse from getting 3 kids killed, apparently, assumedly. And he's like, no. Why would I? This isn't my fault. This is all because Jolene contacted one of her friends on the outside, and so I had to do this. And I remember I did this all for you, Father Pucci. So it seems like that actually Father Pucci probably feels way more remorse about this, and a little bit more, probably a little disgusted by this, given he is indeed a holy man. He is a priest, and I'm pretty sure one of the commandments is no death, is no murders or anything like that. I'm not expert on religion, but yeah, I feel like Father Pucci even himself, it's like, God damn, bro, like I said to get rid of him, I'm just to kill some kids while you're at it, bro. Like, goddamn, you know what I'm saying? Then Father Pucci tells him to look over there, and we see that one of the survivors in the crash comes out of the smoke completely unharmed, with one of the stickers, one of Hermes' stickers on him, revealing that once you doubled him, the kid was stuffed inside of him. So the kid is safe. The 2 kids that were actually on the actual seats, and when they survived, were safe. And Hermes comes out of the body of the other survivor of the plane crash. So obviously, Versus is shocked by this. He's wondering if that means that Jolene has to be dead. And then Father Pucci tells him, I would not let simple-minded thoughts cloud my judgment. And this is when he's like, asshole, just whose side are you on? Like I said before, mentioned at the start of the review, yeah, I'm with Versus. Whose side is he on when he's basically been nothing but putting Jolene over this entire episode, bro? But whatever the case may be, we find Jolene. She used her thread to thread herself around as much as she can to thread herself around Hermes' body so that she would also survive the crash as well. So now that everyone is here, of course, Jolene wraps her threads around around Versus' legs, pulls him up upside down, and of course hits him with the auras and everything. And it seems like at this point they have lost magic. Although this entire time, Father Pucci is just like, yeah. The man's not sweating. This man's like does not care at all. He's like, yeah, this is whatever, you know. And like I love also when after Jolene like punches him, I just love the casual way he just dodges his body just by like moving back slightly. Man, seriously, Father Pucci, man, is fucking awesome, man. I fucking love Father Pucci. He's awesome. Anyway, so when he has them hung up there, Jolene and Hermes on top of whether or not to defeat, if Hermes just takes care of Father Pucci or they do it together. And this entire time, Versus is trying to get out there, but he also says that he's not going to die here. So then he pulls up Weather Forecast's disc, throws it up into the air, and I think Netherworld bounces up the wall and gives it to him, because we see one of the stands moving up the wall. So I think it was Netherworld, and he gives it back to Weather Forecast, or at the very least gets it closer to him and maybe tosses him higher. I'm not exactly sure what happened there. It was kind of hard to tell. But this is when Father Pucci notices that the disc is missing, and he tells him to give the disc back, and tells him that he still has a right to live, and that he's already seen the contents of Weather Forecast's memory disc, and when he does, he's not going to be their ally anymore. Of course, Jolene is confused on what the hell is going on, and Hermes tells him, like, forget all this crazy shit, kill the fucker. And then once again, you have Father Pucci hit out another banger insult where he says, Versus, you insignificant piece of referencing scum! How dare you try and impede on the fortress that me and Lord Dio have carefully cultivated. Like I said, I mentioned this before in the second batch episode, nobody knows how to do insults better than Father Pucci. Pucci. Father Pucci, I think, is like no, it hits like the best insult in anime, if you ask me, man. Like nobody knows how to insult someone like Father Pucci, but he just goes in, bro. Love it. So. Anyway, we then start to see some clouds coming down on them, and we find out that and he calls it heavy forecast, the devil's rainbow. The devil's rainbow. Like that sounds like the edgy title a 12-year will come out to sound edgy, be like, yeah, this is the devil's rainbow. It just sounded funny to me. So we get back to Anastasia and Weather Forecast. Weather Forecast has his memory discs back installed in him, and he's kind of like, he's kind of like moving all over the place. He's not really having any good footing. He knocks into this one guy just chilling on a bench. He's like, "Hey, bro, what was that for? I was sitting there." And he tells him to get his filthy hands off him. I'll kill you. And then you have Weather Forecast staring into this dude's very soul. Like, bro, this man is staring daggers into this man, bro. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is where the episode ends. Phenomenal episode, man. Like I said, this might be my favorite episode of the course so far. I love this episode. The Final Destination dark humor was obviously a nice plus, man. And yeah, seems Weather Forecast has now unleashed his ultimate form and will know the truth about it, what his true power is. So yeah, that's exciting. Anyway, guys, overall, I'm going to give this episode a 10 out of fucking 10, ladies and gentlemen. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like if you did, subscribe if you're new. Follow me on social media if you feel like it. Links down below. And as always, come back for more. See you guys next time.